Hello, and welcome to this parody rendition assignment of the Justice Sulubas podcast. Let's see what's out there. I'm your host, Amin Juez, and the species in question for this, hopefully, one-time episode is the channel catfish. I just realized, though, that I'm talking about seeing things and catfish, and I swear to you, I'm not talking about no, internet stalker level things. We not talking about that type of catfish. Here, it's strictly channel catfish. So, in this episode, we're going to be exploring the channel catfish with the emphasis on their senses of smell and taste. The sources used for the information and facts of this podcast come from iNaturalist, Live Science, Science Direct, and In Fisherman. During this podcast, I will eventually give the catfish ratings out of 10 for their effectiveness, ingenuity, and aesthetics in correspondence to their highlighted senses. First, let's begin with a little bit of the description of the catfish. The catfish, or scientific name, Ictalaris punctatus, is a cylindrical body fish with a flattened face. They get their immediately recognizable name from their barbels or whiskers, highlighting their feline appearance. These catfish are common inhabitants in the more so visually impaired parts of rivers, lakes, and ponds of the eastern and northern U.S., lower Canada, northern Mexico, as well as select parts of Europe and Asia. With that out of the way, let's begin with some of the ratings. So to begin, effectiveness. The catfish has an astounding sense of taste, having an entire body curated with taste buds all over. The majority being around the barbel and whisker area. The catfish amasses over 100,000 taste buds, giving it a sort of super sense when it comes to taste. In comparison to people like ourselves, humans, we have a mere 10,000 taste buds. So you could imagine something like going down to like an In-N-Out or something, grabbing yourself a burger, and having it taste 10 times better. Could you just imagine that? That'd be amazing. Anyways, let's carry on. Their sense of smell. So, their sense of smell isn't any bit lackluster either. Fish tend to have holes towards the end of their snouts named nares. Within these holes are a series of flaps and folds promoting the sense of smell for a fish. In particular to a catfish, they are listed to have more than any other freshwater fish, with around 140, having both a super sense in tasting and smelling. Catfish are able to use these abilities in order to track down prey, with little need for visual cues. This being especially true with catfish living in murkier waters. So much so, in fact, that studies have even highlighted the abilities of blind catfish being able to track down food with the accentuated senses. With all this in mind, I believe the channel catfish's effectiveness rating is a solid 8. Moving ever so swiftly to the next category, ingenuity. Now the channel catfish's ingenuity once again correlates with the aforementioned senses, those of course being the sense of taste and smell. Behaviorally, this species is able to utilize these perceptions in order to communicate amongst one another. It's really fascinating. Catfish produce hormones which are secreted chemicals that trigger social responses. I guess an artificial version of that could be kind of like a cologne or perfume that you might catch you or somebody else wearing on a date or something. So think of that next time you're in one of those. Anyways, catfish use secretion of pheromones along with their olfactory powers in order to quote-unquote talk with one another. The methodology amongst the species is able to help them establish each other's sex, age, size, reproductive ability, and even the social status amongst one another. Of course, this individual specific smell changes according to the development of the listed factors. This special way of communicating is also a way to warn each other of impending danger, which is another cool twist to a different way of speaking. So for the score, I'd have to say that although it's different to something as, me just speaking to you directly or writing something down, it's definitely something that's awesome and kind of like a big up to a system that we already have in pheromones, whether we knew or not. So I'd say that the ingenuity for the catfish amongst its behavior and its way to communicate, it receives an 8. Alright, so now let's go on to the last one. This is going to be my favorite one. Aesthetics. Now, I have to admit that I'm kind of torn between this because we don't judge things based on what's on the outside, because it's what's on the inside that counts. But we're not doing that here. So catfish, it's definitely a plus that you got whiskers, because everything that has whiskers are cute. Cats are cute, dogs are cute, there's mice, there's beavers, etc. Along with that flat head that makes you look a little bit more silly and way less menacing, that along with the cute whiskers that I keep mentioning, I think I'm going to come to a conclusion. Also keep in mind though that I'm comparing the attractiveness of this catfish to other animals in the water. So while this is definitely not no axolotl or anything of that sort, it's most definitely not a blobfish. Not to mention, I keep thinking back to like this Pokemon that I think is based on a catfish, and it's not that ugly either. So, Mr. Catfish, I'm gonna give you a solid 7 on aesthetics. Alright, so I think that does it. I think that's it. Alright, so that's this week's parody rendition of Just the Zoo of Us. Let's see what's out there with me, Amin Juez. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate any support and criticism highly. I'll catch y'all soon. Thank you.